All right, today we're diving into a project that's got a truly revolutionary vision, but its path is just filled with some really high-stakes risks. We're talking about Polkadot. Some call it a game changer, others call it a massive gamble. So let's get into it and find out why. I mean, just imagine for a second, a world where Bitcoin, Ethereum, and every other blockchain out there could just seamlessly share information and assets. No more of these isolated digital islands. That's the core promise of Polkadot, and let me tell you, it is a massive one. So what's this grand vision all about? Well, it's a super ambitious attempt to solve one of the biggest headaches in crypto, interoperability. The whole idea is to create this single, unified network where all these specialized blockchains can plug in and actually work together. To really get a grip on Polkadot's architecture, the best way to think about it is like an airport. You've got the central relay chain, that's your main hub, right? It provides security, it coordinates everything. Then you have the parachains. These are like the individual airport terminals, and each one is specialized for a different thing. DeFi, gaming, you name it. They all plug into that main hub and boom, suddenly everyone can talk to each other. Okay, but this really elegant design, it has a catch, a big one. The entire vision of this interconnected airport is completely dependent on the success of those individual terminals, the parachains. And getting a spot is not easy. This is where the gamble really begins. See, to join the network, projects have to duke it out in these super high-stakes auctions. They bid for a very limited number of slots by locking up huge amounts of Polkadot's native token, DOT. If they win, they get a lease to operate their parachain. It's an incredibly competitive and, frankly, really expensive process. But here's the reality check. Winning that auction, that's just getting your foot in the door. Yeah, it's a technical victory, but it means absolutely nothing if the project doesn't go on to build something useful that people actually, want to use. And this all leads to two very different outcomes. On one hand, a successful parachain brings real utility, it attracts users, and that increases the value of the entire network. But on the other hand, a failed one just becomes a ghost chain, basically a dead project wasting a precious, very expensive slot. And if too many of those parachains fail, the whole ecosystem could really suffer. But let's say a network is filled with successful parachains. There's still a deeper risk here. A project can have all the users in the world, but it's not much use to the Polkadot ecosystem if it can't talk to its neighbors. And that brings us to the very fragile connection holding this whole thing together. The whole promise, this entire value proposition of Polkadot, it really just hangs on a single critical thread. And that is seamless cross-chain communication. This system is literally the lifeblood of the network. It's the magic that allows a DeFi parachain to securely talk to an identity parachain, all under that shared security umbrella of the main relay chain. If that messaging system breaks or it's slow or insecure, the entire model just falls apart. And the source material puts it pretty bluntly. Any significant failure here could significantly damage the network's perceived value and investor confidence. The stakes here are just incredibly high. So we've covered the tech risks, but there's another battle that Polkadot absolutely has to win. And this one's a battle for people. More specifically, for the talented developers that are needed to actually build all this stuff. And the challenge is stark. Polkadot isn't building this thing in a vacuum. It's competing against established giants that already have massive user bases, mature developer tools, and just tons of innovative applications. In a lot of ways, Polkadot is playing catch-up. The bottom line is pretty simple. If developers choose to build somewhere else because it's easier or because there are more users, Polkadot could just stagnate. It needs a constant stream of new, exciting projects to stay relevant. But let's just flip that for a second. What if Polkadot does become wildly successful? What if it attracts tons of users and developers? Well, that actually presents its own set of problems. That's right, scalability pressure. If activity skyrockets, the network has to be able to handle it without grinding to a halt or becoming ridiculously expensive to use. It's a bit ironic, but success could actually lead to congestion, which would frustrate users and just drive them away. It's a really delicate balancing act. So, with all of these high-stakes gambles, parachains, communication, developers, scalability, what's the key takeaway? What should you be watching for in this high-wire act? This quote from our source really sums it up perfectly. The vision is compelling, no doubt. A fully interoperable web of blockchains is the holy grail for a lot of people, but the execution risk remains high. The dream is one thing, making it a reality is a whole other beast. So, if you're following Polkadot, what are the vital signs you should be monitoring? First, parachain performance. Are they actually attracting real users and activity? Second, the auction dynamics. Is there still fierce competition for those slots? And finally, technical upgrades. Is the core tech keeping up with demand? These are the real indicators of the network's health. Which brings us to the final question. Polkadot is betting big on solving some of the hardest problems in crypto. So is it building the future of the internet, or is it a beautiful, complex dream that might not survive contact with reality? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Thanks for tuning in.